take a minute to talk about the settings and tuning in the akimbo onto your climb line. The settings are adjustable top and bottom. Top is labeled A through G, bottom labeled 1 through 7. 1A, loosest setting, 7G, tightest setting. Always start on the tightest setting that you can fit the rope into. So I'm going to start on the second to tightest setting here, just to see if I can fit this rope in. It's pretty tight. I'm going to loosen it up. One on the top. I'm going to start there. So, about the settings are labeled so that you can remember or document the settings that work for you on your rope. Your settings on your rope are not necessarily going to work for someone else in different conditions with a different condition of rope, as far as breaking in or newness of rope, different weights of climbers. So the settings are very personal, and I don't recommend that you recommend your settings to anybody else without them actually running through this bounce test and making sure that those settings actually work for them. So I've got this in a setting that it moves up and down the rope. Now I'm going to bounce test it. Now I don't want this to slide down the rope. If I get a ½ inch or so of movement when I bounce test, that's okay. Now, I think you can see this right here. I'm pulling down on the top arm and I'm not moving anywhere. Top and bottom arms are both touching each other. That's too tight. Top arm hitting the bottom arm before I move tells me that I should loosen the bottom setting. I'm going to go ahead and loosen the bottom setting 1, and I'm going to try it again. Another important thing is your hand position when you're pulling down on the rope or on the top arm of the akimbo. You don't want to be in a situation where you're just pulling on the nose. You don't have a lot of control that way, and you end up with a really bouncy ride. If you put your full hand on the akimbo, however it's comfortable for you. For me, I put my thumb on the back and my fingers wrapped over the top near where the rope is exiting. That way I can rotate the top arm rather than pulling it down on it with my full arm. I get a lot more control and finesse out of it that way. And another thing to keep in mind is there's a bit of a delay from when you pull on the arm and when you start moving. So it pays to pull slowly rather than pulling and getting too much of a fast start. So that's still too much on the bottom. I'm going to open that up on the bottom one more. I'm going to give it a good bounce. That feels pretty nice. So now you can see that as soon as I start to pull this arm, I'm moving. You can see my hand position here. I have my thumb near the back and my fingers wrapped over the front. I kind of keep my finger on the rope so I can feel it move. And then you pull slowly and you're going to start to creep. But it takes a little second to kind of start moving. So if I pull hard on it expecting it to move instantaneously, I'm going to end up falling faster than I want. And I can go looser, but if you can get it to move on a range of settings, you always want to go with the tighter of the settings. That gives you more of a margin of error. That assures that as you run up and down, especially if you run up and down the same section of rope multiple times in a row and you start milking that cover and hardening up the rope, you don't end up in a setting that's looser, because that rope is going to narrow as you really milk it down. So if you're on the tighter end of the range of settings it works, you're going to have more of a margin of error there. So yeah, that's my brief overview of getting it tuned in on a rope. Make sure that you are aware that those settings are not necessarily transferable to other climbers. You're aware that your hand position is important. More control is a smoother ride. And the ratio of friction between the top and the bottom needs to be balanced. So colliding with the top arm before it's moving, you should loosen up the bottom. If you're on the looser end of the settings and they're colliding, you could tighten the top arm. It just means that the ratio of friction is too much towards the bottom when they're colliding before you start to move. If they touch right as you're moving, no problem, that's fine. You don't have to, it's not a big no-no if they do touch. But you want to be moving by the time they touch. Otherwise, you're having to pull extra hard and you're going to end up with a really jumpy ride. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.